to that point, when T.S. Eliot was publishing more and more of his poetry, his friends, Ezra Pound being one of them, said, "Oh my gosh, you have to quit the bank and do this full time." And Ezra Pound actually ran essentially a GoFundMe campaign to get money from the friends to support Eliot so that he could write full time. But he didn't want to. He needed the bank job to balance out his poetry. And I think to your point, I think that's absolutely right, is that writers can be extraordinarily happy and even more productive if it is not their full-time gig.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sara Rosett.
And I'm Jamie Albright. And this week on the show we have
Catharine Bramkamp.
Yes, we do. It was a really fun interview.
It was. We talked about a lot of different things. She's a writing coach, a poet. She's written fiction and nonfiction. And so we had a wide-ranging discussion. We talked about a lot.
We did. And we talked a lot. We talked some about common mistakes she sees for authors. And I thought that was really great.
Yeah, I think it'll be really helpful. And talked about, finding joy in the process of writing and creativity. So that is coming up. What have you been doing this week?
This has not been a very productive week for me. Don't know why. And writing wise, I am running an ad, just one. The ad itself looks great. It's not producing the results I want. So I've gone in, but I gave it a week. He did doing it, but I gave it a week because also I think there was some reporting issues or something. I don't know. I heard that. So I've gone in and tweaked it today. So we'll see. But I mean, it's kind of a big step. I have not been running since back in the fall, and I don't know. I'm still finding my way, y'all. Still finding my way. I want to stay in this business. I want to keep writing. I want to stay in this community. I want to help this community all I can. I'm just not sure what that looks like. I just don't know what it looks like. And but I'm continuing on with this story. I mean, I did get a few words in, but nothing like the few weeks before that. But yeah, if you got any ideas of something I can do, I'm open. I'm open. I don't know. I love coaching, but I don't know. And my coaching clients have seen success. I think we're going to have one on later. I don't know.
I think you just have to keep going forward. Just have to keep trying different things and keep going, and it will become clear. And later you'll look back and go, "Oh, that was the path I was taking," and it'll be clear. But right now, it's like you're hiking; you're not quite sure where the trail is.
No, I don't know where the trail is. I'm making my way with a machete, which
is tiring.
It's dangerous for me to have sharp objects. So, so that has been going on. I will say my TikTok is doing really great, but it's not. I mean, I do post book stuff, but mostly it appears to be like women over 50 and fashion. But I post, and when I post about a book, I get good response, and I do see a couple of sales. So it doesn't seem. It's not doing worse than it was when it was only book stuff. So yeah, and then I wanted to mention that we yesterday, my friend Erica Kelly and I went to Austin to Flutter Romance Books. Laura Lynn Page, who is an OG romance writer for a long time, she has opened a romance-specific bookstore, and it's called Flutter Romance Books, and it is the cutest thing I have ever seen. If you're in the Austin area, she has a place you can, like your book club can meet out on the porch, and it's just so cute, and it's really just got everything. I mean, and you have books you want in there, if you talk to them, I've heard that they're open to that. So, yeah.
That is wonderful to hear.
Yeah, you should go check that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put that link in the show notes so that people can go there and see what it looks like.
Yeah, because
it sounds fun.
Just really fun. Like they had special edition hardcovers from some of the authors.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, I mean they had Onyx Storm. They had everything. It was you got a fantasy paranormal. They've got rock. They've got contemporary romance. They've got dark romance. They have some banned books. Or the books that they are
harder to find. Yeah.
They've got those, and it was just great. And I got to see Melanie Harlow. Hi, Melanie, and she was gorgeous as always. But it was just fun. It was really, it was just a cool celebration of romance.
Yeah,
and I love it. Yeah.
Cool thing about specialty bookstores is you really get to dive into whatever makes that genre special.
Yeah. But that's about it for me. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm good. I'm finally well. And, talking about like not knowing about writing and stuff. Yeah. I mentioned last week that I just had zero ability really to concentrate and write. So I feel like I'm past that.
Good.
But, I mean, that's awful. So I sympathize, and it's just very strange feeling. And but anyway, so I'm finally well, feeling better. I had a bunch of travel this last week. I went up to see my parents. I was inducted into my high school Hall of Fame.
Oh my God.
It was fun. And it was me and another graduate that had graduated in 1963. I think he was a graduate, and he was a runner and had done all this athletic stuff. And he had a bunch of his teammates there. It was very cool.
Well, if you'd have told me, I didn't know you were going to be inducted.
It was a lot of fun, though. But unlike you, I do not have the gift of large crowds. And I had to give a short little speech, and I was nervous. And I made the mistake of looking over at my dad. My parents were there, and he was getting choked up. And then I got choked up, and I had to do the rest of the speech like all teary-eyed and shaky voiced, and so it was super short. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. And one of my friends from high school and college was there, and my speech teacher was there. It was fun. It was really cool. And it was so weird to go back to the high school, though. Have you ever done that? Have you gone back to your high school?
Oh yeah, because I've been back a lot because nieces and nephews playing ball. My sisters have both been inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame, which
cool.
BTW, I should have been.
If anybody's listening and would like to nominate Jamie.
In Kaufman, Texas.
Jamie does have the gift of large crowds, and she would give an excellent speech.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm back there all the time because,
Okay, see, I had not been back. And I hadn't been inside this. I mean, I've been back.
And our school is completely different than it was.
Oh, see, this is the same building.
They remodeled everything, yeah.
Yeah, it's the same building. They have remodeled. And I told my parents, I was like, it's like you're in this weird alternate reality. It's kind of the same, but it's really not. And it was fun to be back and see it all, but it just felt very, very different.
Yeah.
But familiar. It was very weird.
Not only Athletic Hall of Fame, I mean, I would take something for my writing too. I don't know. I did hit 10,000 followers on TikTok.
Good.
So if you want to give me something for that too, Kaufman ISD.
Jamie's open. She's open in nominations.
I'm sorry, I just took over your thing. Not that I'm bitter.
But that was all I had to say about that. Yeah. That was all I had to say.
That's fun.
But it was a lot of fun. And then on that same day, I had an event with everylibrary.org, and they did this thing for Library Lovers Week, which was that week of Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And it was, they had interviews with authors all week long, and it's all free. It's all on YouTube. And the one that I did was with Jennifer Hilt, who does the Trope Thesaurus. And we just talked about plotting and books, and it was lots of fun. So I'll put a link to that in the show notes too, if anyone's interested in catching up with her as well. So it's like I've done all these travel, events, and things. And now I'm back home. So that's all I know.
A cute heart sweater on today.
That's right, because we're recording the day after Valentine's Day. So we don't have any new supporters, but thanks to all the continuing supporters, we really appreciate you. And we got so much feedback. We appreciate all the text and the comments.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll do a special episode and kind of go through the feedback we got. And it was helpful. We got a lot of notes and that were encouraging and a lot of ideas. We'll go through that probably next episode.
Okay. And just like a TV note, 2 shows, and I might have already talked about them, but if I did, I'm going to talk about them again because they're so good. The Pit on Max.
Ooh. Okay.
It's okay. So ER years ago. You remember?
Yes. Oh,
Noah Wiley, the guy who played Noah Wiley, he's in this, but it is an ER. I mean, it's in an ER, but every episode is 1 hour of the day.
Oh, like 24.
It's not a 20.
I mean, like, but it's like that where you're.
Yes, an hour. And I mean, like sometimes they cut it off in the middle of a scene. And you're like, oh, but it's so good. It's written so well. It's not all the drama of Grey's Anatomy. I mean, there's drama, but it's between the doctors and their patients and patients and each other. And it's really good. So that's on Max called The Pit. And then Paradise on Hulu. It's so unique and so interesting. It's a thriller mystery, and it is very, very unique. Like that first episode has a oh my gosh moment that you can't believe. You're like, what?
Okay.
What? So yeah, it's very, very good. And each week there's been this kind of reveal that's been a stunner.
Oh, yeah. That sounds kind of like I was watching on Netflix a Korean drama called When the Phone Rings, and it did the same thing. The first episode has a reveal at the end that you're like, oh, it changes everything. And then they did that with each. I think it was like at the end of episode 2, 4, and 6, they would have a reveal. They would reveal something about the story that you didn't know.
Right.
It was so well done. And then it kind of fell off the cliff at the end.
Oh,
so
no. I hope this one doesn't because it is so good. And I don't know. I think there's 6 episodes out or something.
Okay.
But it's on Hulu and super good. Just really well written. I mean, it's just like one of those, it just gives you enough information to make you go, but then you think you're going one way and then it's really good.
I love that. I love it when I'm surprised.
And I can't remember the guy who's in it. He was in This Is Us.
I can't think of it either.
I don't, but I didn't watch that show because I don't like to cry that much, but, this one is really good. So
yeah,
those are my 2 recs.
Okay, well, got entertainment sorted, and I think we should get on with the interview.
We should too. I think
because Catharine is great. Here she is. Catharine is a world traveler, poet, and belly dancer. In her spare time, she is a writing coach and a workshop facilitator. She has authored 27 fiction, nonfiction, and poetry books. She holds an MA in creative writing, and her book, Out Loud, An Adventure in Writing for Women, was released in January 2025. So very recent. Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Just dropped. Yes.
Well, tell us how you got into writing.
I'm one of those people who have always written. Ever since I could scrawl something on the wall in the hallway with my orange crayon, that was that was me. That was my childhood. I used to create. I remember creating like little booklets when I was in grammar school. So it has always been something that was part of me and something that I've always wanted to do. So that led me to an English degree at UC Santa Barbara. My parents are saying things like, you should go into accounting and you could get a job. And I'm thinking, no, I want to do something that I love. And it's always been part of what I've done and what my personality is. Now, I haven't made a full-time job out of the writing.
Right.
But I have used the writing in all the jobs that I've had.
And that's okay, by the way.
I think so too.
I think we, for a long time, especially in the indie publishing space, it was the goal, the holy grail to be a full-time writer. And I think a lot of people are realizing that that's not for everyone. That's that's not necessarily for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. There was just to that point, when T.S. Eliot was publishing more and more of his poetry, his friends, Ezra Pound being one of them, said, "Oh my gosh, you have to quit the bank and do this full time." And Ezra Pound actually ran a GoFundMe campaign to get money from the friends to support Eliot so that he could write full time. But he didn't want to. He needed the bank job to balance out his poetry. And I think to your point, I think that's absolutely right, is that writers can be extraordinarily happy and even more productive if it is not their full-time gig.
Right. I agree.
It's something I think a lot of people are coming around to. It's taken us a while to work that out. Yeah. Well, what is your definition of success?
When I read that ahead of time, I thought that's really interesting because it's changed as I've matured as a writer and just as a human being, because apparently that happens. I was trying to stop it, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out.
I think part of what we can count as success and what writers can count as success is, are you still excited about it? Are you engaged in what you do? Are you learning new techniques? Are you finding different ways to engage with your art? And if you are, and that's feeding your soul, I think that's the success. Because just counting how many books you've sold on Amazon this week is nice. I mean, sometimes you need to know that. I'm not a numbers person, which is why I'm a writer. But at the same time, that's great, but it's not going to make you younger, thinner, or stronger. It's just a number. It's the doing of it. And that's what I tell my clients. It's like, if you love it, that's the success. If you are doing it for other reasons, it might end up not working out for you as well.
And if you enjoy the process, then you're going to be so much happier. Instead of being totally focused on the outcome or the results of whatever sales or whatever. It's a much healthier attitude to have.
And then that also will help you avoid. I'm going to the San Francisco Writers Conference this weekend, and one of the challenges that newer writers have is they want to know what is the latest, greatest selling genre or selling book, and so they say, "Well, I will go write the zombie apocalypse video game book, and then I will sell the book." Well, I have to point out, I was like, do you really want to spend a year with that? Is that what you really want to do with your time?
Yeah.
And that's the other side of it. It's like, just write your own truth, stay with it, enjoy that process, and let it fill you up. And if you get published in whatever format works best for the book, great. Yay. But you're going to have to promote it and talk about it. I mean, there's all sorts of things that we don't take into account when we're saying, "Oh, I'm going to go write that, I'm going to go write 50 Shades of Grey, only it's going to be 49.
The other thing is, if you write something that's very trendy, do you want to keep writing that for, the next couple of years, maybe? Sometimes it helps to think long term about some of this stuff. Do you want to continue to write the zombie apocalyptic, whatever, 5 years from now?
Yeah. I mean, like, what if that thing takes off? I mean,
it might be a good problem to have, but
it's a good problem unless you hate it or it's not something that brings you joy. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see that sometimes in series books where the author starts out like super excited, and you can feel the energy in the work. And then the second book is great. Still, the third book, they're starting to run out of steam. and you can, as a reader, you can see that. And you might not want to be that person.
Right. They're questioning their life choices, and you see it on the page.
Oh, yeah. In every sentence, in every grim adjective that they put into the book.
Well, what do you wish you'd known about writing and craft?
I think I was like most early writers when I was very young. I was pursuing the best-selling genres. I was trying to write to something that was not what I was good at. Now, that said, in your 20s, as you're writing your first books, you be prepared to just toss them, because you're trying to figure out what you're good at, what is your passion. And if you don't believe, I was trying to write romances because that was like the big thing at the time. It still is, by the way. It is a very durable genre, I have to say. But I couldn't, I was too cynical. It just didn't work out at all. So I had to find what I was really interested in and good at. And sometimes that takes longer for some writers than it does for others. For me, it took a long time. And I think that if I had just given myself some more space for that and said, okay, it's all right, you don't have to publish right away. Just join the writers groups, learn your craft, spend time figuring it out. I think I would have had a smoother go at it. But then everybody lurches through this business in however way it looks.
And a lot of times you have to figure out your voice, and it takes a while. It can take a long time to find your voice and your place. You may know what genre, but you're not specifically sure yet exactly where you fit. It can take a while.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's hard to give up an idea. So I'm a huge fan of Natalie Goldberg, and I did a master's thesis on her work. And one of the things, she used examples from a novel she was writing, and the novel was not that great. What she was really great at was writing about how to write. And to her credit, the novel was called Banana Rose. Don't even worry about it. If you need a copy, just call me. What she figured out fast and doubled down on was what was good for her. And it wasn't that it wasn't selling and the other books were selling. It was more, what was her voice? What was she particularly skilled at? And so sometimes we have that clunker in the middle of a large oeuvre where it's like, oh, okay, that was not where I need to go. And we need as authors to say, maybe that's not it. And maybe I need to go over, look at what people keep telling me this is good. And I might want to listen to them. Sometimes you do listen to your friends.
And sometimes you have a little course correction along the way. Yeah.
And that's okay. I'm 100% all about that. What if you try it and it doesn't work? Then let yourself try it.
It's okay. Yeah,
it is
it's okay to try it and move on to something else. It's totally fine. Well, what about marketing? What do you wish you had known about marketing?
Oh my God, that it's a black hole. I'm sorry, did I say that out loud? Marketing is very hard. And I think what I wish I knew was not to throw so much spaghetti against the wall to see what sticks, because it just took so much psychic and emotional energy. And then if it didn't work, then you would blame yourself, or I'd say, oh my God, how come that didn't take? When, some George down the street did, Instagram when it first started, and he was great and sold all these books. And I came to it 14 minutes later and it was over.
Right.
So I think what I've come to is finding, as I've learned, because we've all sort of grown up with social media, we've kind of seen what the fluctuations are. One of the things that I've learned that I wish I had doubled down on, but maybe it doesn't matter because it's a learning process, is own your real estate. So own your website and own your newsletter list.
Yeah.
And after that, all you're doing is trying to drive people to your website to sign up for your newsletter. And that's it. That's all you really need to do as a writer. I think that there's probably still there's conversations like on Twitter/X. Someday they'll go back to Twitter, won't it? There's lots of agents who will go on there and say, this is what I'm looking for. Here's the newest thing. So there are some tiny niches within these spaces that can be, I think, successful. But what I learned, and I wish I had known, is that it is very specific. And if you love it, do it. If you don't love it, don't try to go. It's so painful to try to go on to something that you just are not happy about. So if you love Facebook, then market through Facebook. If you love Instagram, market through Instagram. But if you don't love it, I think that what I learned is don't try to go to all the platforms. It's crazy making. And it's not good for the creative mind. at all, because it's not how we think.
I agree. I think that's very wise advice. Well, what assumptions did you make at the beginning of your writing career, and looking back, did they turn out to be right or wrong?
Oh, I would probably say everything was wrong. You publish your first book and you're not thinner. That was like so hard to take. So, when I first started writing, I thought it would bring me, and I'm not sure what I thought it would bring me, probably more personal validity. So you have your identity is wrapped up in being a writer, and I thought that meant having lots of books published, let's say. And that is just like, oh, they had you go to a writer's group and you meet Marianne, and she has 96 books published, and you think, oh, she's important. Yeah, I'm not important. What I've learned is that if you walk up if you're at a party and you're talking to somebody who's not a writer, okay, they are less interested. This is fascinating to me. They are less interested in how many books I've published than they are with the actual process of writing. They want to know how on earth I do it. And so it's a different conversation. So if you are a writer and writing, you are a writer. You're doing something that other people can't do. And they want to know about it. So that I would say double down on what you really are, which is a writer rather than a published author, because people are more interested in the process now than they are necessarily interested in the product, because frankly, people don't read books. So what do they care? So I think they're more interested in what magical things do you do to be a writer?
Exactly.
It is a very mysterious process, most people think.
Yes.
So they know it's so mundane.
Oh my God. Lean into the mystery, especially if you're trying to, impress somebody who says, oh, yes, I talk to my muse all the time.
All the time, yeah. Well, I thought it would give me more the respect of people I knew, know? And really all it did was they were just shocked. I mean, to the point of being offensive. Like my family and stuff were just shocked that I had written a book. And I mean, it was like, okay, that's not what I was going for there. The fact that you thought I could never do this is not really what I'm going for here. I was going for more, oh wow, that's amazing. And didn't get that as much as I thought I would.
Yeah, and they also, like, when my mother would read one of my books, she would always misinterpret who she was in the book. It's like, oh, I know, I am this person, and I'm thinking, no, no, but we're gonna just go with that because I don't really want to have this conversation.
Right. My mom will still say, and she is like my biggest supporter. I mean, I could not ask for a better supportive mom, but she still says when she's telling people, who knew? Who knew?
She's still surprised.
She's still surprised. 7 books later. Yeah.
My mother, who is not a salesperson by any means, someone came up to her at one point and said, oh my gosh, I just bought Catherine's book and I really enjoyed it. And my mom's response was, why? Okay, clearly I'm not impressing the family. I'm going to move on.
Yeah. Move outside that circle.
So we talked a little bit about lessons learned, but are there any other, like, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned recently?
I would say to double down on the creative act, because the creative act is what keeps us engaged and it's what can save us from all the chaos that can be raging around us, is to double down on your creativity and do what your heart tells you to do, because that is what you need to bring into the world. And I'm working on that myself. I have 2 poetry books out, and then this book out loud about helping people write books and yes, publish, but it's more about do this, be this, and this will ground you in a much more solid, real way, so that you're not constantly distracted by all the stuff that's going around. And I think that's something that we can do for ourselves.
I love that. what's the biggest change you've had to make in your thinking?
That's a good question. I think it was to feel less about the product, to not put pressure on the product.
Yeah.
And to stick with the generative joy of doing. So I actually had to get a book called Process and embrace the process.
Right.
Because for the longest time, I was all about let's get to the product, get to the product, get to the product.
Mm-hmm.
And the only, as you guys know, as maybe your listeners probably know too, is once you have that product, then you move right into the other dreaded P word, which would be promotion.
Yeah.
Publishing, which just are annoying as all get out. So I'm like, let's go back to the happiness where we're producing.
Yes, creating, yeah.
And once you have created the thing and it's published, then there's that urge to get back to producing right away, yet again. Right. It's an endless cycle, and it's easy to not appreciate each stage as you're going through it, because if you're looking ahead or back, you just don't appreciate each thing as you're going through it.
I think so. And I also think that when we're first starting out, that we misidentify what part of this process is going to bring us happiness, so to speak. So we think that it's the the physical book, and frankly, if that's all you want to do is have a darn book on your bookshelf, that is a really good goal. So let me say that that's a good goal. But the other side of it is you get into it and it's like, I just want to see my book on the bookshelf. Great. So you see your book on the bookshelf and suddenly you realize that it was not as fulfilling as you hoped. And now what do you do? So it ends up becoming what's next? What will next? It'll be when I want to speak, I want to speak at a big room. So you speak at the big room and you're done and you're like, okay, that wasn't either. So it's kind of like Goldilocks trying out all the beds. Right. It's not as fulfilling. Sometimes those end products are not as fulfilling as we expected.
It's that moving the goalpost all the time.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it.
Well, if you were starting over today, what would you do differently?
If I were starting over today, so at this age, if I were starting over, if I were just knowing what I know, I would spend as much time as I wanted reading books, instead of assuming that I knew everything, which is easy to do in your 20s, I have to say.
Yeah, we all do it. Yeah.
But I think I would allow myself to spend more time with all of the experts with novels. If I was going to be writing a novel, I would really gather that in. I would make connections with people in that genre or in the industry in general, because those connections and those friendships will help drive things forward, not necessarily in a super intensely successful way, but just in, just to keep you from feeling alone in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And we talk about that a lot. Yeah. I wanted to ask you about being a writing coach. What do you wish you'd known about working with other authors?
I would say probably I wish I learned more patience and let them, because that's what I had to learn on the job, so to speak, but allow them to go through a whole process before delivering the answer, because they will come to the answer that I think they should have, but it just takes them maybe 5 to 7 more minutes, or it takes a chapter or two rewrite, and then they come back to me and they say, what about this? It's like, well, there we are. Instead of me just pounding them and saying, here it is, I already know the answer. And some of my clients like that. They're like, don't ask me, just tell me what to do. But, but I think that if we're led to our, if we've got somebody who's like, okay, let's have you get here by yourself, then it's going to embed better, and you're going to your next book is going to be a little bit stronger and a little bit more smooth.
What are some of the biggest mistakes you see authors making?
Okay, I'll give you my favorite. I had a young man who had just written a book, and he wanted he was recommended to me because I would help him with, promotion ideas. And I said, well, what did you have in mind? I like to ask them first. And he said, oh, well, I'm just going to send the book to Oprah, and she's going to have it on her book group. And it'll be great. famous author, right? And I paused for a minute and I thought, my first thought was, do I tell him she doesn't have a book club anymore? I said, is that your whole plan?
Any plan B?
Yeah.
Let's talk about plan B. I sometimes have to talk my clients off the cliff and just say, all right, no, that is not going to work. Let's look at something that's going to be more grounded for you, make that happen in a different way.
More realistic.
Yeah.
I can see that. Well, you talk about being, like staying excited or staying in the process of the book. How do you tell your clients? I mean, like, what are some suggestions you give your clients for staying excited about writing?
I usually recommend that as soon as they're finished and we have published their book and we've got a plan for them to promote the book, and I said, okay, promote the book. And while you're promoting the book, let's start a new project so that you're never just promoting, because it's so soul sucking to make sure they're back with their love, which is to make something interesting out of a whole string of words that make no sense when you first start out. So what I recommend is start that lovely, grimy first draft, raw draft, get yourself back into what is the point, which is this love of doing the work. And it doesn't even have to be related, and it may not even turn into a book, but it gives them something else to do while they are grinding their way through promoting and making sure their book is in bookstores, et cetera, et cetera.
Very important.
Yeah, it is. It's super important.
Well, tell us a little bit about your book that just released, Out Loud: An Adventure for Writing in Women. Tell us about the inspiration behind that.
So the inspiration was, I was working with a client, and we were walking through, something about her book. And she looked at me, she said, oh my God, you need to write all this down, because everything you say, I run a writing group with five women. Everything you tell us is like so good. I'm quoting her. And you should write this down. You should write this down. And I said, that's nice. I have a lot to do. I really don't need to write a book.
Yeah.
But it struck me, and then my muse started talking to me, and I don't argue with her. I just do what she says, because I'm going to lose that energy. And so that was in July when I started writing the book on things that I know to be true from my clients. I frame it as an adventure. So you have the beginning, you have rough shores, you have, how to deal with critics, how to speak at your very first speaking engagement, because sometimes that's terribly upsetting. People who are really happy spending an entire day alone writing fantasy books, right? So it's like, you need to go out in some public. No, not the public. How to begin, how to end, how to, why nonfiction is easier than fiction. And I started writing it in July, and I published it in January. So that was one of the faster turnarounds I've had for a book. And it just like worked. And I'm really happy with it. And I'm really happy with my beta readers who went through, and one friend who was reading it said, oh my gosh, I only got 3 chapters in, and I already am I'm rethinking everything on creativity, and I'm going to go write another short story collection, and I'm not going to write my book right now. And it was like really lovely that she was, I could actually inspire somebody who was looking for typos. So that was good.
That's great. And it's important, and written specifically for women, I think.
Yeah, I doubled down on that. I had one of my readers ask, she said, well, this seems really great for men and for women. And it is, but I wanted to write something that understood how women's lives are, because oftentimes when we read these, and they're great books, no argument, but I'll read advice from male writers, and they'll say, well, you just write first thing in the morning, and then, then you go to work, and then you come home and you keep writing. And I'm thinking, who's making your lunch sandwiches?
Yes.
I need to know that,
because small details like that are important.
And so I wanted to write thinking about women's lives and how do you fit in that creativity when you're the person responsible for the sandwich, for, the husband, the boyfriend, whomever.
The laundry.
The laundry. Yeah. And so I wanted to frame it so that it was more about how our lives cycle, what we're up against. Oftentimes women are we're the helpers for another artist. That is, and it's a thing that I've spent a lot of time studying about and have a book about. But that's, it's like this unknown. We're very good at this unknown background work. And I want to be able to give women an opportunity to express their voice and actually get their own voice out there. Because I think women have a lot to say. I think there's a lot of people who are in the background who have a lot to contribute. And I'd like to encourage them to step up.
It's wonderful.
That's so great. Yeah. More of us should be doing that. And I just think it's great. Well, what do you think the best thing you've done to set yourself up for success has been?
My first comment would be I have a partner who actually earns money. That's been key. Just to be really blunt. And he says, I've been supporting the arts for 45 years. And he has, and I love him for it. The other thing that I set myself up for success was just, ironically, calming down about everything. Once I stopped pushing, and people know this from sales. I used to be in sales. Once you stop pushing at things, kind of the universe will come back in a very different way and will support exactly what you need support with. So it's just like negotiating with a 2-year-old. I mean, you can't just say, do this. You have to say, all right, if I give you the car keys, will you spit out the cigarette butt? Or you have to organize that differently. And I think that is a true story. I think that's part of it, is to allow, and I hate the word where someone says, allow the universe to manifest, because that's a bunch of garbage too. But there's something to be said for not constantly being on. And we all know this because we've got people who are in sales or they're very desperate about selling their book. And I tell this to my clients, you can't just go on social media and say, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book, because it doesn't work that way. Then you're just a pariah and no one wants to talk to you. So you have to come up with these other ways of doing things. And also I found that, my writing, my money comes from speaking engagements. It comes from coaching. It comes from all these other activities that I love doing. And that the books bring those opportunities to me. So that's something else to consider as we're writing our books. What else is this going to bring to the table? What else is it going to do for me? Because it might not just be about book sales.
Great answer.
Well, tell everybody where they can find out about you and your books and your speaking and all the other things you do too.
Oh, thank you. Well, let me give a couple of shout outs. There is a local writers group conference on March 8th in Grass Valley, California, called the Sierra Writers Conference. And you can find more about us on the SierraWritersConference.com. We are very pleased that we are featuring Amy Tan as our keynote.
Oh, my.
So pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
And we have the Sierra Poetry Festival. It's one of the more successful poetry festivals, if that is a sentence, in the country. I love poetry because it has no point. It's just about art. I love
My daughter loves it too. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I adore it. So the Poetry Festival is April 12th, also in Grass Valley in California. And our keynote speaker is Kim Adazanzio, I think is how you pronounce her name. But she's our keynote speaker. And that is just really generative and fun. And then you can find me on Catharine-Bramkamp.com. And that is where all of my books are. And you can also find Out Loud on Amazon. You can find the rest of my books on Amazon as well.
And we will have all those links in the show notes. So thanks for being here today and sharing with us.
Thank you very much for hosting me. I enjoy talking with both of you.
Great. Thank you. Well, we will have those links at wishidknownforwriters.com. And if you want to support the podcast, you can go to that same link /support. So thanks for being here. We'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.